Welcome to the Impact on the Ground podcast series. I'm Tiia Sammalahti, CEO of whatimpact.com. In this podcast series, we'll dig deeper into what it takes to make an impactful change in our society. I'll give a voice to charities, social enterprises, companies, grant makers, individuals, and government officials who all have one thing in common. They are keen to make a difference. We dive into practical solutions and observe the dynamics of those who have resources to give and those working with the beneficiaries on the ground. Let's start making an impact together. Today on Impact on the Ground, we have a special guest, Jacob Hill, who is the founder of Offploy. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Tiia. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, what is Offploy? Could you tell us a little bit about your community interest company?
Absolutely. We're an organisation that ultimately mentors socially excluded people into housing, work, mental health support, whatever they need. And we also advise companies how to hire those socially excluded people.
Oh, cool. So you are the founder. Where did you get this idea? What was the trigger?
Offploy is an organisation that started out exclusively supporting people with convictions into employment. I'm the son of two police officers. I never thought I'd be going down the route of supporting, the criminals, the people on the other side of it all, until I became one of the criminals. And that was, after a failed business, I made stupid and reckless decisions in life and landed myself a 28-month sentence. So I went to prison, and whilst in custody, based on my upbringing, I honestly thought I'd find evil, nasty people. I thought I was going to be attacked and beaten daily. And most of the people that I found, honestly, were incredibly desperate, incredibly kind, and incredibly intuitive or ingenuitive. I don't even know what word I'm trying to use. You know what I'm trying to say. And it just seems such a shame that they've got all this untapped potential and no one kind of opening doors for them to just take the best opportunities in life, be it with an employer or access better housing or create a positive community around them. So whilst I was in prison, I got to work with pen and paper and started writing a business plan for Offploy.
That's just a wonderful story. I'm like hearing goosebumps because, we all make mistakes in life, and there are periods of life and we actually have quite many lives in our lives, so to speak.
That's true.
We are transforming as humans, and also sometimes things just happen, like you said, that they can escalate and you find yourself in such a difficult position. And if there is no mercy or any that kind of like a compassion, it can be daunting and get you spiraling into even deeper. So great, well done, Jacob.
Thank you. Thanks, Tiia. Thank
you. That's fantastic. So before we go to kind of your programs and stuff, I think we can have a candid conversation now about employing marginalized groups. And you now have a lot of experience, not only employing ex-offenders, but ex-armed forces, homeless, long-term unemployed, you name it, asylum seekers. So is there still a stigma around it, or is it kind of alleviating somehow?
It's getting better, but the fact that you and me are still running a podcast episode on this suggests that some minds and some hearts need changing. We're not preaching to the converted quite yet. So I think there's a bit of a way to go. And I think the biggest stigma, especially when it comes to people with convictions, is understanding exactly what a person with a conviction is. I mean, if I ask the audience to think now, okay, image of someone with a conviction in your mind. Before I went to prison, honestly, I only ever thought of the Shawshank Redemption, Prison Break, Orange is the New Black, and all these these are my only references to people with convictions. But when we think about that cohort, they represent 12.6 million people in the United Kingdom. 1 in 4 adults of working age here has a criminal record. So when we think about people with convictions, it could be anything from speeding points right through to imprisonment. But of those sentenced in the UK every year, this really shocked me. Of those sentenced in the UK every year, only 8% get sentenced to prison. 92% of people will never see the inside of a prison cell. They will get a fine, a community order, whatever it might be. So I think as employers, not only are we thinking of the worst, biggest, baddest image, the most violent and serious person with a conviction we can think of, but we're always thinking of the prisoner as well, when actually 1 in 4 adults represents all of society.
Oh, yeah, and this is totally, even I haven't thought about it, and I'm sure many of the listeners either, that ex-offender doesn't mean ex-prisoner.
No,
You have
absolutely not.
offended, there might be different kind of conviction levels and also so many different kind of crimes, so to speak, which can be from economic to then, of course, violence or drugs or something, but it's not just one lump of people that you can like think about kind of in generalization way. Okay, so when companies now are looking into more diverse employment policies, there are, of course, various motivations. Government is pushing this hard, Social Value Act and all these national procurement policy statements and procurement policies are heavily focusing on diverse employment policies and such. But also companies want to do good, and some of the companies actually need the labor. They are in the need of more, employees in certain very high kind of manpower businesses, so to speak, construction, facilities management, hospitality. There are a lot of industries that actually struggle to hire enough. So how does it work if companies don't have a robust this kind of employability program in place? How should they look at this in the first instant? What is the strategic view that they have to take on how to move forward?
You're absolutely right that organisations are facing real struggles with talent since the pandemic. The world of work has changed since the pandemic. There's people that don't want to work in the same way as we did before lockdown. We've also faced Brexit as a country, so we've lost a real short of access to high quality and also high volume talent at times. When we look at these vacancies and roles, there are the fast-moving consumer goods, the large volume roles needed, but there's also incredibly technical and very kind of specific or qualified roles that need filling that also people with convictions have. Their big barrier is the conviction. Here's what I'd say to an organization looking to get started in this. It's the humans and the people within brands, within organizations that make things happen, isn't it? When we have a great interaction with an organization, we don't have an interaction with the logo, we have an interaction with the customer service representative or the HR manager or whoever it is. So it's the human behind it all. The humans listening to this podcast today will likely want to say, well, I want to look into this a little bit further. I want to see what it takes to be a bit more open to employing people with convictions. And there's two major reasons people do this. There's one, because it feels good, it's the right thing to do, we know it's what we should be doing. And there's two, the business case and the business side of it. And I'm going to say this: without getting the business side right, you will not have a sustainable recruitment stream, because you need the board, the shareholders, the clients, the customers, the wider public on board with it. And if you are going to do it as a business, don't do it unless you can move these 4 needles. These are the 4 areas I suggest businesses look at. First of all, recruitment and talent pipeline. Does employing socially excluded people, not just people with convictions, can you measure and prove that more roles are being filled as a result of this recruitment initiative? So can you say we are actually accessing more of the right talent as a result of doing this? You need to know where you are starting and then watch the needle move. The second needle is retention. Does the cohort of socially excluded people we've recruited stick around longer than the cohort that we haven't recruited from socially excluded backgrounds? Timson, the cobblers, the key cutters, the belt hole punchers, they see a 74% retention of their justice cohort after 12 months. That is huge in retail. And that's because people with convictions are grateful for the opportunity, and they also have to worry about their spent conviction. They have to worry about when they disclose it next. So you give them this opportunity, they're sticking around. That's needle number 2 that we need to move. Needle number 3 is social value. Are you going to measure and demonstrate social value as a result of hiring socially excluded people? That is incredible, to not only prove what you do well, but also use it to improve what you do, which leads us on to our 4th needle, business development. Can you use all of that, especially the social value part, to demonstrate? I mean, we think of, let's say, the TOMS framework, got NT5, employing ex-offenders. can you demonstrate social value as a result of employing people with convictions? And of course you can. It's one of the largest social return on investment figures in there. It's a huge opportunity to use that to go and win business, to show the government that you're doing the right thing, that you're reducing reoffending, that you're making society safer. So long answer short, you've got one side, do it because it's the right thing and get people doing it because of the nice big why, because they know a naughty nephew who did something wrong a few years ago. But have the business case there and prove that you're making that impact.
Wow, this is a good list. Four needles. Yeah, totally. So if we go to now public sector procurement, which is requiring a lot of these employability kind of targets to be met by government tender bidders, and there are different measures, I would say, like in Tom system for homeless, need, ex-offenders, ex-armed forces, and so forth. And we at What Impact on our platform, we have seen companies who kind of don't really have a strategy in place, but they are, I'm not saying that they tick a box, because they will need to hire the people eventually if they tick the box, but they don't have a robust plan. So they are very unsure that, okay, if I'm now ticking 4 here, 3 here, 5 here, and then they start thinking about the overall contract volume where they have done the same. And then they come with the total sum of people, from these marginalized crews, but they don't really have a employment strategy in place, and then they struggle. So what advice would you give to that? What is kind of is there like a ratio how many people could be hired from marginalized groups in order the HR and other functionalities to cope, or is the answer then to collaborate with your type of organization to get that extra support which these groups might be needing in order to become employable, but also maybe hand-holding during the initial months of employment?
I love that. Okay, so we're looking around kind of, is there additional support needed for individuals with further social exclusions? On one side of it, if I could talk incredibly commercially minded as an organization, it doesn't harm, providing you use the right messaging and why you're asking those questions, to run an equality monitoring form throughout your organization. And whereas normally there's just protected characteristics on the equality monitoring form, why not add the have you ever received a criminal record, and not do you have any unspent convictions? Do you have spent convictions? Because it will probably be an anonymous form anyway. I hope it would be for organizations to do this. So ask people if they've ever had a criminal record before, for example, even if it's long spent, because you could use that when reporting to the government that we have employed people with a criminal past, for example. Great. And they're now in stable employment. That is me speaking very commercially minded to just work out where you are. You need some strong internal messaging around that to, guarantee anonymity, tell people why you're using it, and tell them what the benefit to the organization and ultimately them as individuals will be. We all know at organizations how bloody hard it is to get people to do equality monitoring forms anyway, but maybe you'll be able to track just an extra 5, 6, 10 people as a result of that effort. So that's just me kind of drawing a line and saying, that's a really easy way to just get those numbers up if that's what you need to do to report on your contract. Fine. But how do you do it authentically after that? How do you as an organization say, we are actually encouraging people from veterans, people facing rough sleeping, people fit with convictions, we're actively encouraging them to apply to our organization. And we also actively encourage, because let's not forget, the people you already employ whose circumstances change, who may be now facing homelessness or mental health challenges, or may now have a new conviction, but they don't know how to tell you. The first thing to do as an organization is be transparent about where you are. Where do you stand as an organization when someone with a conviction applies for your roles? And don't just tell me, well, we've got an informal process where we consider it on a case-by-case process. No. What are your 6 or 7 questions you ask at interview? Which questions are relevant to the roles that they're applying for? Do you really need to know about financial related crimes if they're applying to be a driver for your organization? If they are in a bookkeeping role, fine. So as an organization, where do you currently stand? And if you're not sure, first of all, Tia, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but we've got a quiz people can take. So I would love to share that with people to work out where they are. It's a quick yes or no quiz. Work out where you are and then figure out where you want to be. Cement it in a policy, our ex-offender policy, our homeless recruitment policy, or our social inclusive recruitment policy. As an organisation, we accept applications from A, B, C. We actively encourage these groups to apply. We make risk assessments in this way or another, and we make recruitment decisions based on this. And we reject people and let them know why. Like, you could put this together very simply with a group of people, no more than 2 pages, have something and display that publicly, just so that socially excluded people know what they're getting into when they apply to your roles, because they know nothing other than that. Like, honestly, when we're employing people and supporting people, if I see an organisation with a checkbox to say, do you have any unspent convictions, and one tiny line that allows them to disclose the most shameful part of their life on their application form, I actually encourage them to go look for another employer. Whilst that might be, because you don't know what that employer is going to do with that checkbox or with that line. You've got to assume they're going to reject them. And if you're not just going to reject them, put a statement out there, stand above the rest of the employers, say, we ask this question at the application, but we make these decisions based on that. Here's our transparent process. Finally, rambling on, as for the mentoring and the initial support part, people with convictions, people facing homeless, veterans, they are people first and foremost. They are just like your colleagues who, don't have any of their social exclusions and might be having a bad week, month or year. What would you do with them to support them? And then just apply that to your existing group. Maybe some individuals need intensive mentoring and support, but that's up to you as an organisation, whether you want to hire from that cohort and then add that additional support to give people the help they need.
Okay, if we go to Offploy programs, and
Yes.
what could be just examples of a company working? If now there is let's say social value manager, there is a HR manager, they're kind of thinking about, okay, we have to put this policy in place, but in practice, what does it mean? Kind of what is the support, because not every company has people to support in that kind of mentoring, or maybe there is extra help with the housing, all these kind of other finance management or something like that. The companies don't have those in place. So do you offer these services?
Yeah, there's 2 sides to it. There's the organisation support, ensuring the company is where it wants to be when it comes to employing socially excluded people, not where we want you to be, where they want to be as an organisation. So I'll tell you what Offploy does, but I will say that you can do this yourself as well. People come to us because they like the lived experience. They like the fact that we obsess over employment law, GDPR, and a few other Rehabilitation of Offenders Acts. That's our niche. With organizations, what we tend to do is take them on an employer's journey where we get social value, HR, BD, a member of the board all together in a room, and over half a day we go, where are you now? Where do you want to be? Here are some practical steps for you, and we give you a blueprint which says, as an organization, you want to be here, so you need to take A, B, C, D. I mean, one company we worked with, a huge corporate, ended up with 30 recommendations for us that we gave to them, and we said, you can go and do it yourself. But more than likely, they'll come to us and say, but can you do these 4 or 5 for us? So one side is working out where you are, where you want to be, and ultimately getting to that policy, that stance, and then training your team to adopt that policy. It's all well and good writing your 2 pages, but if you can't get the team on board, can't change the culture and the mindset, it counts for nothing. The other side of it is the onboarding and mentoring support for the individuals with convictions.
Yeah.
I am warmed to see that there are major corporates out there that are, not relying on DWP funding or a charity to pick up the slack and mentor someone for 6 to 12 months in the job that they're in that position working for that organization. They're actually going, well, we actually pay a recruiter £3,000 to £5,000 to find this role. Instead, what we'll do is we'll pay the charity or Offploy or an organization like us the same amount, maybe a bit less, who knows, to find us the candidate and then support them for 6 to 12 months in that role. For me, that is not every person that you hire that's socially excluded. I am a socially excluded person because I have a conviction. I do not need mentoring and support. I love it. I'd enjoy it, but I will turn up to your organization. I probably won't do a very good job speaking personally, but I'll turn up to your organization and I'll be reliable. I'll be there every day. I'll do what I need to do. You can't say that for everyone and anyone, but I am saying that just because we are socially excluded doesn't mean that we need intensive mentoring for 6 to 12 months. So I would use that sparingly and let the individual take ownership of accessing that support, rather than you saying, right, we are recruiting from this cohort, let's spend thousands on every person getting that level of support. It might not be needed.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. And also, we at What Impact see now a surge in organizations like you. Of course, everybody has different like a theory of change and
Yes,
operational
true.
method, but there are a lot of social enterprises and charities who deliver these services, and you can, as a company, then buy that extra help what you might not
Yes.
have at the HR department, because that might be also quite stressful, thinking about the HR department, that it's their stretch anyway, and they are kind of more administrative, and they maybe do employee engagement, there is talent retention kind of targets and stuff like that. But then you have this totally new cohort that you would need to know about, and there is special kind of information that you should obtain,
Sure.
and maybe you're not trained. That might be very stressful. So
Yeah.
it might be very kind of, how would I say, comforting to work with an organization like you, that that when there are challenges or something, they can turn to you, and they are kind of not alone.
One
So
of
that's
the
yeah.
Sorry. No, so one of the biggest things I see employers taking real comfort in working with Offploy, for example, is supporting HR behind the scenes to make a risk assessment decision on an
Yes.
individual who's made a disclosure, but then going one level deeper, and the people who have received the disclosure, one, ensuring they're well trained to, when someone discloses their offence to you, you don't go completely white and out of fear or jump out of the window, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But also that they can offload afterwards. They might hear something that is trivial to you and me, such as, I was done for robbery, I broke into someone's house. That hiring manager might have had their house broken into the week before, and they might just need to offload after hearing that with someone that's not their line manager. They might want to offload to an organization like us. So I've loved seeing, especially around the disclosure process, they're taking a disclosure, reacting to one, making risk assessments on it, but then emotionally offloading after hearing it. That's been a very popular part of our service with companies.
So just a very practical question, but I'm interested in now when there are a lot of reporting needs for public sector procurement, and like in 3-month stages, you have to demonstrate that how many ex-offenders, homeless, da 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 da. So that reporting kind of capability and responsibility is with social value managers, maybe contract managers, and so forth. So what does it do with enclosing them? Who has a conviction, or who is from these backgrounds? That how vast have the information spread in an organization, and
Such a good
kind of
question.
what are the kind of the privacy protection kind of clauses for an individual, because it's not everybody's business if somebody has been homeless or something. So what advice would you give that, or because technically the social value manager or contract manager has to know who, and they probably are exposed to the names and stuff like that, but there might be quite a lot of these people. So I'm just saying that half of the organization then knows this background information, and is that needed?
I love that question. That's incredible. Because it goes back to, why are we asking, first of all? This is the principle of data management. Why do we need to know? And the answer to that is that, well, we want to win more business as an organization. That means we can continue to create impact, keep people in jobs, see socially excluded employed, but also keep the HR managers and line managers in employment as well. This then comes down to who needs to know. And the principle is, the fewer, the better. And the less information, the better. Now, social value means more information, usually. It means, how do we find that information? I would prefer to see a model where you don't know who it is, but your HR team are trained by the social value team to gather the appropriate data for you, to say, right, I know on this person's record they have ABC declared on their equality monitoring form, or they might not even know that who's done what equality monitoring form. You don't need to know names. You can just know quantities. Now, if you want to know names, you can put it out there to the full organization to say, does anyone have any convictions that they would be happy to tell their story for our social impact report? And you've got to do it in a non-tokenistic way. But the numbers, in my opinion, do not need names attached to them. Now, I know that creates a lot of quality in the reporting to say that, we can actually prove that that person has that conviction is there. What we suggest specifically around convictions is if you take a conviction information from someone, you need to know a couple of bits of data. You need to know when that offence is spent as a HR manager, because once that offence becomes spent, and if they're not working in a standard or an enhanced level DBS check role, a regulated role, that's actually information you're holding that you no longer need to know as an organisation. So first of all, record the date that it becomes spent. We've got a calculator that can help you work that out. But secondly, store the conviction data separately to the HR file. Give everyone in the HR folder system a conviction code, every single person. And then when you need to use their conviction data for whatever reason, say, right, I've got John Smith, I'll look at his conviction code. Oh, there's nothing in his conviction file. Fine. But I've got Adam Smith, I'll go look at his prof. Right, there's something in there. Now I need to know about this conviction information. So storing it separately, anonymizing it, getting rid of it when it's spent. These are all important bits. As a social value practitioner, I think it's about those genuine relationships, building trust in people on why you ask those questions, upskilling your HR team to gather that data for you so you don't need to know who has the conviction. Because once you've employed that person, very few people need to know after that process that we hired that person and they had a conviction. It shouldn't really flag up much more in the organization's process.
Well, that's a good advice, and this kind of practical advice is needed because this is a huge struggle in companies, for sure, and I'm sure that this also creates like a nervousness in these hiring practices because there are no systems in place. And then comes the stress when you are reporting to the contracts, and you should technically probably almost not provide names but evidence who the people are, because in contract kind of management, the procurement of the public sector is looking into that you're not using the same data again.
Absolutely.
For every contract. So how do you then kind of identify who they are but not identifying who they are?
Exactly. And this comes to codes and figures. But one thing I will say to people is, it can, by the time we get to this point in the conversation, it can feel like, actually, I don't think I want to open this kind of worms as an organization. This is a lot. It seems overwhelming. I just go back to the beginning that 1 in 4 adults of working age has a conviction. So it's not about whether you choose to employ people with convictions or not. You're already doing it. It's choose whether you want the best standard of processes in place or not. Because guess what? The employers that have it right and have it well will now we'll see the talent come to them. Just don't think that you're the first employer to employ people with convictions. People with convictions now have choices on where they're going to go, and they're going to the popular organizations that have strong pathways and have a strong culture of employing people with convictions. They're flocking to those areas because they know that those employers are fair and just. Just because you say we don't exclude people with convictions doesn't mean people with convictions are going to come apply for you. So genuinely, by this point of the conversation, what I do want to say to people listening is it's not a case of whether you do it or whether you don't. It's whether you get it right or not. And now is the time to take action on that, really.
Wow, that was almost like a closer.
Oh, sorry.
No, it was, because it was so good. It was so good. So one more question, kind of, again, like a practical about your type of organization collaborating then with businesses. Like on What Impact, as you know, since your organization is there, we have this matchmaking mechanism where companies can set out like partnership offers where they are defining what kind of targets they are trying to meet. And there might be now that, okay, we would need to have employability program for, let's say, long-term unemployed or ex-offenders, and it has to be in certain geographical area. It might be going to some certain contract, which they haven't yet won, and so forth. And I know that many companies are kind of like shy on putting these offers out. They're just trying to use our directory and stuff because it kind of feels somehow public, and also they feel bad about bothering you because they don't know yet whether they win the contract. Could you now tell kind of the companies that it's okay to contact you.
It's okay
to even a contract space.
Here's what I'd say for companies: it's those that are staying quiet, and we're in a really sensitive time in the world where we can't do wrong for doing right. I don't know what the way the saying goes, but it's the idea that we're scared of saying the wrong things or putting the wrong wording out there. You might use the word ex-offender and people will get offended at you for saying that. You might say people with conviction, ex-prisoners. You know what? The fact that you are on here, you're on What Impact, and we've seen great success from being on What Impact already, and I'm so grateful for that. Thank you. Get something up and get something out there. If people there tear you down and bring shame on you, they're the wrong people to be on the platform. And we are a community here to help and uplift, and a high tide rises many ships. So get something out there. But what I would say to employers, if you are unsure where to start, take our 5-minute quiz. It's a diagnostic tool. Yes, no answers. See where you land. And that might give you an idea of where you are with your culture, your risk processes, your social impact measurement, all around employing people with convictions. But if you are that nervous and that apprehensive of putting something up there, get in touch with us. And I promise to you, we will not try and just win the business for ourselves. If we're a community here, we believe in quality competition because that increases the quality of service. We will give advice on how to put your tender up and get it in the right language and wording that attracts all socially excluded groups of people or just organisations that work in the justice space. I just want to see more people make the most of this service, and I want to see more people in the community, organisations like Offploy, give that opportunity a go. We've recently been it wasn't awarded an opportunity, but we were invited to tender. And now one of the partners, one of the employers on the platform said, Offploy, thank you so much for applying to us. They got back to us really quickly. We loved that. We love seeing that they got back so quickly. They're going to go to a tender now using our name, and they'll stick to their word because they've done it through a responsible procurement process to try and win a contract. And when they win that contract, because I know they will, Offploy benefits from that business. You've got to have many irons in the fire as a socially excluded organisation. It is not wasting our time. It's a great opportunity to pick up the phone, to speak to another company who you might influence just a little bit. Their processes change and your socially excluded cohort gets more opportunities and more access. And that's the power of What Impact. So we need to see more of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. And it's exactly kind of the case that tangible plans win tenders, and tangible means that you can name the partner, name how this is going to work. It's kind of like guaranteed that this will be done, because people can literally tick the boxes or say something super vague that yes, we will be.
Yeah, we spoke to this organisation once.
And so forth, and that's then great, because also public sector procurement, they want to be responsible. This has to be done in a responsible way, and your type of organisation, is a great partner. So thank you, Jake, for this chat. This was so fantastic. And where can this quiz be taken?
Offploy.org/employ, and you'll find us on What Impact as well.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. And all the best for your great venture.
Thank you very much.